Hi, I hope everyone's having a great Monday. I'm Colleen, for those of you that don't know me, Raising Lifelong Learners. You are on my page here today, and we are going to talk every Monday about topics that affect parents of gifted, twice exceptional, and intense kiddos. We're going to talk about strategies to help them. We're going to talk about things we can do to motivate them, and then any other kinds of questions that you have. So today the topic is motivation, and I'm gonna kind of wait a few minutes here to let people get in, actually just a minute or two. So if you're joining us, take a second and say hello. My camera's in front of me. I took some notes because some people have emailed me questions about this topic. And then I also have on this side here, my iPad set up. Earlier, I put a thread on the page letting people know that, that we'd be talking about this topic and giving them a chance to ask some questions. So I want to make sure I don't miss any of those and that we're covering as much as we possibly can in the next 45 minutes or so. But these are for you. I really appreciate all the years of support those of you who have been a part of this community have given me as we've grown and as we continue to grow. And I don't get a chance to meet you just a couple times a year, and I can only write so much on the site and share so much on the page. So I figured that these live chats would be a great way to tackle some of the topics that I'm asked over and over again. So here we are. I know Mondays at 3 are good for some people and not good for others. Ultimately, just had to pick a time that I could be consistently on and I could tackle your questions. So it will be recorded. It will be archived on the Facebook page, and I'll also put the video on my site, raisinglifelonglearners.com. There'll be a page with links to everything that that we talk about today. Hi, Renee, Florida. You know, interestingly, we're in Ohio. And it's September, and usually September is gorgeous and mild and, you know, like that perfect kind of coolness, but still warm enough to get out and play. We love September because we get to go to the parks and the zoos and everybody's back at school. It is 90 degrees with a heat index of 97 today. Schools in our area are closed, not all of them. Of course, my husband's school is not closed. He's a first grade, actually he's a reading specialist this year. He is a reading specialist for first graders, and he had to go to school today. But our neighbors are all home, so it's killing my kids because they had to still do homeschool. We do our schoolwork usually like 2 days of work on Mondays and 2 days of work on Tuesdays because we have a lot of activities and outside lessons and co-op and things on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then we can pick up whatever we didn't finish on Fridays. So my kids have heavy days on Mondays and Tuesdays. And then they can kind of cruise through the rest of the week. So they were watching the neighbors outside, and ironically, motivation was tanking a little bit here today. So we had a little bit of a struggle this morning. So, but I'm glad that you're joining us from Florida. I was in Florida for the first time last year this past year in May, but last year in November for the Gifted and Special Needs Conference that FPEA put on, and it was great. I really enjoyed myself. I only got to see a little bit of Florida, but it was fun. We're hoping to go back there. Okay, so let's start talking. We've got about 15 people joining, and if you want and you think that you know people who can benefit from this topic, feel free to click the share button and share it out on your own Facebook wall. Tag any of your friends who you think would benefit from this. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Suze. Yeah, I know. I need to find my motivation sometimes too. Actually, I have my motivation. I have my coffee with one of my favorite mugs that my friend gave me. So share this video out if you're in any groups that have gifted, special needs, intent kid parents. Feel free to share it in there. Invite people to come on over because we want to get the word out. We want Facebook to show this to as many people as possible who could benefit. And so the best way to do that is by letting Facebook know that it's valuable and sharing it out. All right. Hi, Ashley from South Carolina. Give that little boy a squeeze for me. I met Ashley 2 years ago at a convention. Hi, Shelly, Minnesota. Are you guys cold yet, or you still have a little bit of a warm snap? Okay, so let's talk motivation. So before we even get motivation. A lot of times people are like, people who don't really get gifted totally, or, have like a moderately gifted or kiddo, or have only worked with or been exposed to kids in a limited way. They're like, why do you need to motivate your gifted kids? Gifted kids are those kids who sit in the classroom, have all the answers, raise their hand all the time, and are always eager to please, right? Not so much. Actually, sometimes, but not always, and not usually. Oklahoma, we have a St. Louis. There's a GHC convention next July that's going to be near St. Louis. It's not going to be actually in St. Louis. I forget exactly where it is, but I'll be there. Hi, Judy from Texas. So Carrie, if you're looking for a homeschool convention to go to, I'll be talking there about gift topics next year. Can't disclose what they are yet because they haven't been approved, but we will be talking about them soon. Hi, Tabitha from Hawaii. I saw your turtle pictures. Did you do the turtle pictures? I think you did sea turtle pictures. I love sea turtles. All right. So anyway, that myth of kids, gifted kids, always wanting to learn, always raising their hand, always being, super go-getters, super motivated, really is a myth. Sometimes kids are like that. Sometimes our gifted kids are like that, particularly our younger gifted kids. When they are still at home and they are like, asking a million questions and want to know everything. But as they get a little bit older, that struggle starts to be more and more apparent. Also, the more, giftedness is on, the bell curve when we're talking about just intelligence, human intelligence. And giftedness, the cutoff, so to speak, when you're talking like clinical or prescribed giftedness, like when you get the cutoff testing, when a kid is gifted, you're talking 2 standard deviations above average on the bell curve. And for every, bit you get above that 2 standard deviations, further and further and further away from the norm. And you also get more and more differently wired than neurotypical kids. And so those kids are wired in a way that they want to learn, but they want to learn their things on their time, what they're motivated in. And then they also can sit down because they can have lots of different kind of comorbid issues going along with their giftedness. And that can tank their motivation too. So gifted kids tend to be a puzzle with motivation because while the general population thinks that a gifted kid is a high achiever, we know, those of us who live with gifted kids day in and day out, those of us who work with gifted kids, truly, truly gifted kids day in and day out, know that that's not always the case. We deal with things like perfectionism that debilitates our gifted kids. We deal with these expectations that they put upon themselves that they can never realistically meet, imposter syndrome, where they think that everybody's going to somehow find out that they're not as smart as we think they are, and so why even bother, because they're going to fail anyway. We get kids and adults who are really, really, really motivated to do something of interest to them, pursue their passions, but their passions don't always align with other things to be done, like brushing your teeth, getting in the shower, doing your math assignment if you're a linguistic kind of kiddo, or whatever. And so they can get hyper-focused on one thing and leave all these other things on the table. And it can be really frustrating for those of us who are teaching them or parenting them, because we know in our hearts that they are capable so much more than they are showing us. And so we just don't know what to do with it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Yes, Tara, not the case at all. Anna says, oh my goodness, that you're listening as you try to get your son into uniform and off to school. Yeah, I remember those battles well. We are homeschooling now, and I know this page is divided probably half and half between, or actually it's probably a third, people who homeschool their gifted children, people who traditionally school their gifted children, and then people who kind of do a hybrid of both. So I can talk about it from all different perspectives. I taught gifted in the classroom for a decade. I have my own gifted kids who we tried to get to school, and for various reasons, the school system wasn't a good fit for us, and now we're homeschooling them. So I come at it from a couple of different perspectives. So I can try to tackle just about any topic you throw at me. And then what I can't answer from personal experience or personal research, we can find the answers and drop links in later. So, all right. Okay, I have to laugh before we go on because Trista just said something that my kids tell me all the time. Her gifted child tells her she doesn't need to study because we have Google. So I just had a battle with my oldest today. He is doing a high school life science class, and he knows a lot about life sciences. But I know there are gaps, like over the years. He's ninth grade, and over the years, we've gone deep in certain areas of passion. We followed lots of rabbit trails, but we haven't gotten to some of the nitty gritty, like cell walls and mitosis and meiosis, and some of those like basic breakdown things. He went off into some chemistry stuff for a while, and he went off into ethology of animals and behavioral things and experiments. And so we skipped over some cell stuff. So I'm giving him this course. He can breeze through it, and he can, you know what? I'm going to stop for 1 second. See, this is what happens with lives. I have, I thought that I had put my, my do not disturb on my messages, and I didn't. Okay, so here we go. We're back. So I have text messages that are coming through, and I meant to click do not disturb. I'm easily distracted, as you can tell, and I just didn't want to get distracted anymore. So yeah, my son tells me that he's got definitions that he's got to solve or define for this life science class. And I gave him a dictionary because I want him to just learn how to do the dictionary. I even told him, you don't have to look everything up in the dictionary, but I don't want you to go and Google every single definition. Now, chances are you're going to be doing that at some point. You know, if I need to define a word, I just have on the computer and I click define : in the word, and it comes up. But I know how to use a dictionary in a pinch. I also know that my kids have gotten used to talk to text. So they just ask Siri or ask Alexa or use the talk to type function on Google and just tell them the word to look up. And he was giving me a little bit of trouble this morning because I told him once he was done with the dictionary, he could go onto his tablet and he could look up the definitions there. And oh my goodness, the grumbling I got because Alexa was messing up a lot of the words, and goodness gracious, he had to type it. He had to type the words to look up the definitions. And that was just way too much work for him, in his opinion. And he shut down. And we had some battles this afternoon about that. So he did end up doing it, but Minecraft was my carrot dangling for him today. So he's doing Minecraft right now. Okay, so let's talk about that. Some of the things that that affect gifted kids who look like they're undermotivated, and we talked a little bit about this in the beginning, perfectionism. So let's examine that a little bit, and we'll do an entire live talking about perfectionism at some point. But I just want to say, when I'm talking about perfectionism in a gifted kid, I'm not talking about, there's kind of two different things when we're talking, there's two different like terms when we're talking about perfectionism. We're talking about kids who are striving for perfection, and that's a good thing. We want our kids to strive to be really good at what they do, to work really hard, to be really diligent, but we don't want them to become so perfectionistic and so wrapped up in it being perfect that they shut down because they're just afraid it's not going to happen. And so that's where a lot of gifted kids can get into trouble, because they get this idea in their head of what it should look like in the end, and they get this doubt that they're not ever going to make it to that point. And so instead of like pushing through that doubt, they shut down. And really, yeah, Gina, the more technical it gets, the less those talk to texts can help them, or Alexa or Siri can help them. But we want to stave that off as best we can before they get to the shutdown point when it comes to perfectionism. So what we can do in those cases, and it's not going to work for everybody. I know that when we were talking, and I'm going to look over here at my iPad for a minute. So we're working on little different cameras here, and I'm one person sitting in her office. So I don't have the multiple cameras to switch angles. So look over here for a minute. Overcoming perfectionism, Patricia and Jeanette asked me about that earlier. When kids kind of sit in the school system, or even in our case with some of the homeschooling stuff, where it hasn't been too difficult for a really long time, and then all of a sudden it's a little bit more challenging, and they get, kind of angsty, afraid that they're not going to be able to do it. So they don't do it. They just skip. And I'm going to tell you a personal story about this. So my son is really, really brilliant. I talk about him in my talks all the time. I write about him on my site all the time. He's the reason we homeschool. He's really the reason I wish some days that I could go back to the parents of gifted kids whom I taught and apologize for not knowing some of the things that I know now. Because living with a gifted kid, a profoundly gifted kid, day in and day out, is a totally different animal than teaching them for a few hours a day. And I made assumptions before I had my own son about the kids and their home settings that I know now are wrong, because it's really challenging to parent a profoundly gifted kiddo, especially when they have some other issues like overexcitabilities or perfectionism or anxiety or ADHD going along with that. And so we're here now homeschooling, and he is really, really bright. He can get things really, really quickly. And so over the last year and a half or so, I kind of let him on his own to do some of his work. And, he would check in with me in the beginning of the day. He'd check in with me at the end of the day. And we would kind of make sure that things were going along the way they should be going. And I trusted that it was, because the answers were right in the book. His notebook was full. We could have great conversations about the different things. And then this year, when we went to sit down and start him where we thought he needed to be in a couple specific subjects, we gave him placement tests just to make sure there were no gaps. And he failed every one of them. In fact, one of them, he broke down crying. And he admitted, at least for the last 6 months, maybe longer, he'd lost track of time. He had found where we had placed our answer books, or he had found ways he could find answers online without actually knowing and understanding the work. And so he was just copying the steps out of the answer booklets and the problems, or the descriptions and things like that, into his work, and not internalizing any of it. So he had used his intelligence to find ways to circumvent the system. And as we have sat down over the last couple of weeks and kind of analyzed what he'd done and where his gaps truly are, we've helped him see he's actually not as far behind as he thought he was. But it takes a great deal of intelligence to talk in a way and to do things in a way that makes everybody think you know what you're doing. So he just took his intelligence and used it to manipulate situations instead of using that intelligence to get the work done and get it done right. And so now we're battling because we've got to backtrack and redo some things. So motivation is a little, touchier right now. And yeah, Suze, that was exactly what our point was. Suze said, better he learns it now than in college. And that's kind of how we're looking at high school, the high school years, I should say, because the truth of the matter is, if you sit down and talk to my son, and I know some of you have at conventions and conferences, you'll see he's a pretty sharp cookie. And so it's really evident that he knows a lot about a lot. He just doesn't have study skills. He just doesn't have perseverance. He just doesn't have follow through. And he shuts down if there's too much to do, or if he thinks he's not going to be able to do it right. And so he shuts down, or he manipulates and finds a way around it. So that's what we're working on right now. So what we're doing to kind of overcome some of that perfectionism, and what I've talked with other parents about, and parents of kids that I've taught, is we need to get our kids on board. And so that's going to look different for every single family and every single kid. I say you need to kind of find what your kid's currency is. I've got 4 children. One of my kids, his currency, his motivation is electronics. As much as I would love to say he is intrinsically motivated, he really wants to do the right thing all the time, he just doesn't. And hopefully he'll grow out of it. Maybe he won't. Who knows? But everybody's different. He's motivated by stuff and by tech. And so we are working through that right now. And he's doing things in baby steps to catch up and to use tech in between it. So he's got a Kindle Fire, and he's got a computer. We have a shared computer on the family. And he uses certain things on there to kind of get him, like the carrot that dangles. So I said today, his carrot was Minecraft. He hasn't been Minecraft in a while. And so he wants to play, excuse me, and he's on there playing right now. But it took us a lot today, a lot of fighting, a lot of angst, because we really just like hit the ground running today and put that into play. And so, yeah, for some of our kids who aren't really intrinsically motivated, if they are extrinsically motivated, it might look a little bit like bribery. And you might have to do that for a while until you can help teach them that perseverance, that follow through, using that carrot, because he didn't get to his Kindle, or actually I think he's on the computer. He didn't get to Minecraft until almost 3 o'clock today. He's been up since 7. So I kept telling him if he had gotten his work done right the first time, without arguing with me, without having the yelling matches we had today, because I am not a perfect parent. We yelled a lot today, he and I back and forth, and he knows the buttons to push on me. If he had just done it, he could have been on his Kindle like by 11 or 12. And so he lost 3 hours. And so maybe tomorrow, it's going to be a long day of work because we have Wednesday and Thursday off. You can get in there and you can get it done a little bit sooner. So sometimes you need to give them that little carrot. Sometimes you need to help them see their future or the purpose in it. My daughter, 10-year-old, she is an intrinsically motivated kiddo. She's heavily into theater and voice right now, and she's doing a great job. She knows that she's got to take care of her body and she's got to take care of her mind if she wants to be able to do certain things. She at 10 has her sights set on a very specific college in the area that has a great musical theater department, but it's super competitive. They only let in about 2 to 3 kids to the program a year. And so she knows that she needs to wow them on stage, in song, in dance, and academically if she really wants to get into that program. So she doesn't need me to bribe her with the Kindle. She doesn't need me to bribe her with anything. She needs me to lay out what the future is going to look like. What does she need to accomplish by the time she's 18 to get into that very specific school she's got her eyes set on? And she can break it down a little bit, and then I can help her. So we're working with that with her. Hey, when you slough off on this and you don't write complete sentences, dude, I know it's a pain, but if you can train yourself now when you're 10, when you're 13, and then when you're 16, it's going to be super easy to do. And you can then audition for more shows. You can take extra voice lessons. You can take some acting classes to get you ready for that audition for that theater program when you're 16 or 17 or 18. And that works for her. So we've got to kind of find what their reason is, what their currency is, what their purpose is, what their passion is, and then dive into that. I'm going to look at the comments, see if I missed anything. Okay, I'm going to scroll. Resilience. Yeah, Gina, that's a good question. Gina asks, how do we teach them resilience when things come so easy for them? And that's tricky because I'll tell you right now, I failed. I failed miserably with my oldest. He was my first and is my first. And we're still struggling with some of that because while I could do that really well when I was a gifted specialist and working with small groups of gifted and profoundly gifted kids that weren't mine, it's a lot harder to do when they're your own. And for the longest time, everything came super easy to him. And so once he got to the stumbling block, I didn't hold his hand through it. I didn't know. He shut down, but I just kept pushing. Come on, you can do this. You're capable of it. Just work. Just try. Just reread it. Instead of working to see what the hold off was, what the stumbling block was, and helping him see ways around it. So my husband says often, he will come up against a brick wall. My son will come up against a brick wall and he'll just keep banging his head into it, hoping that brick wall will fall down eventually. And if he just walked around the corner, it'd be really easy to get to the other side. But he's just going to keep banging his head against that wall until it breaks down or he falls down in the complete exhausted and beaten up mess. And that's where we're at. So that resilience is really, really tough. I would say the best thing you can do for a kiddo who struggles with resilience and pushing through when things have come easily is start them young, working on executive function skills. And you can search my site for executive function skills. I need to write some more about it, but there's a couple things on there where they're training their brain to break things down into smaller tasks. So if they get to something that's a little bit tricky, break it down. Break it down into manageable chunks that they can attack one little bit at a time, and then, move forward that way. And then asking questions. Tell them it is okay. The smartest people don't have all the answers. Really, in our society, we often see that the people who seem to have all the answers aren't always the smartest. They're the ones who are being the loudest. The smartest people are the ones who ask the questions. They ask clarifying questions. They dig deeper. They look for other ways to find answers. So they're not just looking at the surface of any situation. And if we can teach our kids that distinction between, wise wisdom and seeming to be smart by spouting off all the answers, we can help them understand that that they can build resilience and build that stamina in that way. So I don't know if that helps, but that's one way to work on that. Shelley talks about or asks about working on a growth mindset, but then falling back on incentives. Yeah, and I think that's so her question is, her statement is we're trying to work more towards developing a growth mindset, but we tend to fall back on incentives because he lacks motivation. I don't think there's anything wrong with working in a combination of those ways. So growth mindset, for those of you that don't know, and we can do a whole talk on growth mindset, is that idea that you can be anything you want to be. The danger in that is you have to work for it. And so forgetting that we have to, for teaching them that they can be anything that they want to be without teaching them that they have to work really, really hard to be whatever they want to be is where we kind of break down. And sometimes kids, especially gifted kids, who can't always see their future, they need that broken down for them. So they may need some scaffolding to get to that growth mindset piece. And so what that means is scaffolding is just, a fancy word for saying building those bridges, right? Making the ladder to get them to where they need to go. Like a painter uses a scaffold to get to the different parts of his painting if he's doing a big mural. So we have to scaffold for them. So that might mean starting right now with motivation extrinsically, giving them incentives, giving them motivation in a way that we know is going to get their needs met. But then expecting them to do more and more before they get that incentive. So making it harder and harder to get that incentive, and then praising the work, not the results. So praising the perseverance, praising the hard work, praising the tackling of difficult things, praising the gaining new knowledge instead of the product. So I know that that's hard sometimes because it's easy to say, oh my gosh, that's such a pretty picture, instead of, wow, that looks really creative. Can you tell me your thought processes behind it? Gifted kids can see through the crap really easily. Sorry. So if you're saying that's pretty, they're going to be like, yeah. Does she really understand what it is? But if you say, wow, that looks really interesting. I can see that you used a lot of creativity to come up with that idea. Can you tell me a little bit more about it, or explain to me your process? How did you layer those colors? Because that's a really cool technique. When you're focusing on specifics and the process, you're getting them to that point of growth mindset because they're being rewarded for the work involved instead of the end result. So we're always going to end up as humans falling back on incentive when it's only the end result people are looking at. But if they're looking at and praising the hard work more than the end result, it's really easier to help them buy into a growth mindset. All right, let me see if I can find a couple other questions. So this is I'm looking at some of the different questions that are coming through. Um, so somebody had asked about resilience and motivation. Did I answer? So anybody that asked about resilience and asked about growth mindset, does that help? Tell me if you want some more, ask me some more clarifying questions. Wendy says that her oldest in junior high had no motivation. His famous line was that his grades weren't just important because they didn't count yet. That is so interesting because we struggled with that the last couple years, and now that it's counting, so to speak, with my high schooler, I'm getting pushback because he's like, you went from not having me do anything to having me do everything right now. And I'm like, well, no, you just chose not to do any of that before. Now you have to because it counts. I'm taking the transcript. And while, I know there are a lot of different types of homeschoolers here if you are homeschooling, and there are a lot of people who, are in public schools and have to work within, the constraints of schools' expectations. We tend to be a little bit looser, more unschooly or eclectic or interest and passion driven educators in our family when the kids are younger. So I'm more apt to, on a really nice day, take my younger kids to the park to look for tadpoles or compare leaf colors or nature journal or talk about science like outside or go outside and do an experiment or an exploration or a listening hike or do some writing at the playground or whatever. Or also watch a documentary about something they're interested in. Read all day long because we're into a story. But as they get a little bit older, I start to tighten the reins a little bit more simply because I know at least for two of my children, they want to go to college. And so I'm helping them see what they need to do to prepare for college. So, when you're preparing for college, you need to prepare for the different expectations you're going to have there, whether that is copying notes, taking notes, doing open book tests where you're looking back and kind of extrapolating the information and pulling it into your own words. So I want to make sure in the high school years that they've got all of those tools at their disposal and they've been exposed to all those different things. Tara says, it's hard for you to get up the motivation to fight the battles every day. That her profoundly gifted 10-year-old doesn't want to do the schoolwork ever, even if she dangles a carrot. Yeah, that and maybe you haven't exhausted the options. I don't know. I've been there, Tara. So I'm just going to say, first of all, I'm going to commiserate with you. It's not easy, and there are some periods of time where it's just a little bit tougher. So I'm going to tell you, we're starting in the whole puberty world with two of my four children. And my oldest is a boy, and he's almost 15. My second oldest is a girl, and she's 10. And I remember foolishly thinking that, woohoo, I have 5 years in between them, which means I'll get a little bit of a break with the whole puberty and the hormones and the emotions. Because once my oldest is almost through it, then my next one will be kind of going through it. But what I'm learning, not just from my own experiences, but from talking to numerous people who have had both boys and girls going through puberty. Girls tend to go through the emotional and the feelings and the woe is me and the stubbornness a little bit earlier. And the boys go through all of that snark and that venom and that anger a little bit later. So what I actually have is both of them going through it in different ways at the same time. And those boys tend to be, argumentative and lazy and whatever. And I'm totally overgeneralizing. So know that your experience may be totally different than mine. But my 10-year-old Tara is really emotional and has been since last year. It is just in this year, really in this new role she has, because she's got a part in a play that's a pretty big deal for her. And it's really ignited that fire under her to get good at what she wants, what she's doing, so that she can get to where she wants to go. But last year, even weeks and weeks ago here, she was still fighting me over doing math. So just to help you feel better, age-wise and ability-wise, she should be in fifth grade math. Ability-wise, knowing her ability, she should probably be in 6th grade math. She is almost done with her 3rd grade Singapore math book. So what I'm using that example to tell you is that we had so many battles at 8 and 9 over math that I let it go. I focused on the things that really lit her up, and that was reading and writing and talking about her books and going for walks and writing in a journal to me. And then we sat down and said, this year, you're 10. You have had this break in your math, and now you need to do it. By the end of this year, you have to or by the end of this coming summer, you have to finish 5th grade math, because you have to be going into 6th grade math in your 6th grade year, because that is important for us to be able to keep you on track for when you're ready to start thinking about college. And so she's doing 2 to 4 math lessons a day right now. Is it always easy? No. But then I just remind her, you want this theater program. And then she'll go and she'll do it. And so it wasn't always easy, and it isn't always easy. She still asked me today. She had 3 math lessons to do today, and she asked me if she could do 2. And I looked at her and I said, what do you think I'm going to say? She said, no. And I said, okay, go do the 3rd math lesson. When all was said and done, it took her about 25, maybe 30 minutes to do all 3 math lessons, because it's not that hard. She just doesn't love it. So I would say keep trying, but if you're exhausted and she's exhausted and the battles are too hard, step back for a little bit of time, work on your relationship, and then come back to it. Just keep coming back to it, with fresh eyes. I don't even recommend always switching up curriculums. And I know a lot of homeschoolers will say that, find a curriculum that's perfect. There are certain subjects that I call my non-negotiables. Math is one of them. I know Singapore math works in the elementary years. For us, it's easy for them to do in that the workbooks have the information in there. So it teaches while they work. The textbooks are easy, colorful references. There's white space on the page, so it's not overwhelming. And it's not super cyclical, so it's not spiraling. So they're not saying the same thing over and over again. Once they master it, they can move on. So I won't switch it up. We supplement with SmartTick, and that's smarttickmethod.com. And I really like it. And they like it because it's fun. But I don't switch out the Singapore because I don't have time to learn and do new programs all the time with 4 kids. And that one's a non-negotiable for me. You just have to work through it in a linear fashion. So everybody's kind of got to find that way for themselves. So but sometimes that motivation is hard. Okay, so I'm missing a bunch of the questions. I know. I'm going to see if I can find some. Okay, so somebody, let's see, Josie, you mentioned, I'm trying to find the comment. So my friend Jen, Wave Jen, is texting me some of the comments to address, because I can't see them all. They go by so fast, so quickly. So Josie, you mentioned motivation sometimes being counterproductive with based on the tech addiction. Yeah, so that is really tricky. Some kids are wired to become, they have more of an addictive personality, and technology, certain games sometimes can trigger that in them, because and I'm not an expert on tech addiction. I'm not an expert on that part of brain development, but I'm fascinated by brain research, so I do read a lot about it. And some of the stuff that I've read says that some of these brains, particularly profoundly gifted brains, can kind of lend themselves towards addiction, in that that dopamine release that is released in the brain when something is pleasant or pleasurable to them can be released when dealing with a game like, say, Minecraft, that there's like instant gratification. Like Minecraft, you go through a day pretty quickly. So it's easy to get lost in it, to, keep going and keep going and keep going and constantly being rewarded for the things that you do. And so that can trigger in kids who lack self-regulation or are prone to addiction, that can trigger that desire for more and more and more, because that pleasure that they're getting from the instant gratification of the game can then be first of all, can lead to the addiction of tech, but also can be counterintuitive to the whole motivation piece, which is why I say that there is no, okay, somebody asked, and I'm going to find it because I want to find out who it was because it's perfect. Somebody asked Kim said, I want to know what the magic wand is to motivating your underachiever or your reluctant learner or your gifted kid. I really wish there was one. I say this in almost every talk I do live. Anytime I talk to a parent about their gifted kid, any consulting I do, and a lot of the articles that I write. If you've met one gifted kid, you've met one gifted kid. So they are neurologically wired differently. They are differently wired from their neurotypical peers. They are just as differently wired from each other as they are from the general population, because that whole gifted thing is IQ based, ability based, and it's along a continuum. And so whatever motivates them or excites them or interests them, or whatever comorbid, which means coexisting, difficulties they face or they struggle with, whether it's overexcitabilities because their brain just won't stop, or it's ADHD, true ADHD, or ADD, inattentive, or autism spectrum, or anxiety, perfectionism, whatever. Everybody's got, along that gifted spectrum, everybody's got some other kind of thing going on with it. And they also have different motivations and different interests and different whatever. So if you've met one, you've met one. Just because their IQs are the same doesn't mean they're motivated by the same thing. Doesn't mean they're interested in the same thing. Because if they were, we wouldn't have the nuclear physicists and then the entomologists who are able to study the way a certain insect does something and extrapolate that to help redesign airplane wings, or the behavioralist who can sit down and understand the brain working to be able to tap into what it is that makes your kid tick so that he or she can help him be successful, or whatever it is that is where their interests lie, where their brain has triggered them. We wouldn't have all those differences. So we have to look at every single suggestion and strategy as on a case-by-case basis and compare it to how our family structures. We took Minecraft away in our house. Today is the first day my kids are on Minecraft in a year and a half because 2 of my 4 children lack self-regulation skills. 2 of my 4 children, I have a feeling, are prone to addictive behaviors just because of the way their brain reacts to those pleasure stimuli. And so we took it away for a while because we wanted to help them see that there were other things that they could be interested in and that were just as interesting to do. It worked for us for a while, and it rebuilt our family structure. It rebuilt some of the relationships within our family, and it also reignited some creativity, and we've had some pretty cool things going. We have implemented it back in, not implemented it, but we've given it back to the kids so that they can now see if a year and a half's made a difference, and they can grow from there. You know, Trevor's upstairs right now programming mods. He's been off of it for a long time. He's programming mods, and he's doing a really great job. A year and a half ago, he was diving into his siblings' world and destroying their structures and killing them. So it got to a point where it was the rush of pleasure was more about what he could take down than what he could build up. He's been talking for a couple of weeks about the things he wants to do to program, and so we figured it was now time that he could try again. So that was a good point about the whole tech addiction versus it kind of took us on a little me on a little rabbit trail, but it's so tough. Okay, so what else? Let's talk here. Goodness, there are a lot of comments. Okay, so I'm going to say this because we're nearing 45 minutes, and I know there's a lot of comments in there that I didn't cover, because that's the hard part about lives is going back and forth, and I have help, but it's not always, I can't always get all the answers. So I'm going to make sure that in the next hour, I dive back in here and I answer questions. And I'm also going to post this on my blog with like a show notes kind of page. So the video will be there. The video will stay here on Facebook, but it will also stay on my site with like links to different things that can relate to some of the topics that we talked about and some of the comments that are here. So, all right, let's see if there's anything else. If there's anything else, shoot it in there. You can tag me, tag Raising Lifelong Learners, and me and my friend Jen will see that. If there's anything else specifically, let's use this last 15 minutes here or so to answer specific questions. Shelly, you've got to go. Okay, you had to leave a little while ago. So thanks for stopping by. Oh, Tara, so I'm not the only one who has a third grader or a 10-year-old third grade math. I've been thinking about getting Beast Academy just to have it as an extra so they can read through it. We're going to stick with Singapore because, like I said, I like it. My kids also read for fun Life of Fred. Let's see. Sue's, no. Okay, so Sue's asked if I use Singapore for algebra and geometry also. I don't. That's a really good question. So I use Singapore from K to 6. And actually, really first grade to sixth grade, I use it like hardcore. My kindergarten is like, whatever. And in fact, Isaac, who's 4, is doing kindergarten math right now, and he's doing a BJU Press workbook that we were gifted, and he's loving it. But the kindergarten math is kind of all the same across the board. I just want him to be ready to dive into Singapore first grade when he's ready to dive in and sit still. So I use Singapore roughly K to 6. Sixth grade, we stop it. Okay, so here is my opinion about middle school math. I don't use like the 7th and 8th grade math books for the different programs. Any program that I would use, I would probably skip over 7th and 8th grade, and here is why. Typically, middle school is the time frame that schools and curriculums are reviewing the elementary stuff and preparing the kids for the high school stuff. So it's like transitionary math. And I want my kids to do K to 6 for mastery. So by the time they're done with 6th grade math, even if it's 7th grade, I want them to be ready to move into high school math. So we go right into pre-algebra from 6th grade math. We do pre-algebra. So what we do for pre-algebra, algebra, and algebra 2, and then geometry, trig, and pre-calc is video text interactive. I love it. I've met Tom Clark, the founder of it, numerous times at conventions. I've sat and talked with him both as a parent and as a fellow educator. He is brilliant. He's a brilliant mathematician. He knows his stuff. He taught math for decades. He knows there's a better way to do it. He teaches the math from the semantics and the language of the math along with the problem solving. So kids understand math from that mathematical language perspective. And because of that, we shake up the sequence a little bit. We get them into pre-algebra, algebra, and algebra 2 in one chunk, whether it takes them a full 3 years to get through it or they master it more quickly. They're doing that same type of language, that same type of thinking all in one. Once they've mastered pre-algebra, algebra, and algebra 2, they go into the second set of modules, which are geometry, trig, and pre-calc, which are very similar, semantics and language and grammar, the grammar of mathematics. And then they can breeze through that as quickly or take their time as slowly as they need for mastery. So if you're dealing with a super smart math kid or someone who's super sharp and gets it quickly, then they can move through those 6 years of math conceivably in half the time. And then they can go on to dual enrollment, they can go on to college level mathematics or whatever. Or they can, if they're not going to go on to college for engineering or something else like that, they can use those extra 2 years to dive into some of their passions and take different electives because they've met their high school math needs. Now, if you look at Video Text Interactive, and I think it's videotext.com, there is no affiliate program for that. I'm promoting that because I truly, truly love it. I think it's a super smart way to teach math, especially if you, like me, want to teach to mastery and not make your kids redo things for the sake of redoing things. If they get it, they should be moving on, particularly when they are gifted. So I think it's a super smart way to teach math. If you want a little bit more accountability or you need a little bit more help, my second favorite, which is still close to a favorite, and really if I had discovered him before Video Text, I may have started Trevor back there in those classes, is Mr. D Math. And I'm pretty sure it's just mrdmath.com. I do have an affiliate link for that because Trevor's taken the ACT boot camp. He's going to be taking, I think in February, a personal skills class for teens, life skills for teens class. And he'll probably take the SAT boot camp. Not the math stuff because we're already doing a math program, but I love Dennis Denola as Mr. D. I love his methods of teaching. He's really engaging. He does live video lessons or recorded lessons, and he's really, really, really good with the students. He breaks it down really well, and it's also a really great way of teaching math. So those are my two favorites for those ages. So I hope that answered your question, Suze. All right, I'm gonna see if I missed anything that I can get to relatively quickly. That is, how do you work on self-regulation? That is, I think that's going to need to be like a longer talk, and I can come in and I can drop some links for you and answer that a little bit in the comments. But I want to talk about that more. That is actually a really good talk topic. That's the other thing, guys. These are for you. I can talk gifted all day. I can talk about your kids, and I can give you strategies that work for me, that have worked for other parents with whom I've worked, not because they're going to be silver bullets, but because it's something else to try. I can give you encouragement from the perspective of a parent living with profoundly gifted kids, and also from the perspective of a teacher who's worked with them academically. So I want these talks to be what you need. So if, like Suze just asked about self-regulation, you have a topic you want me to tackle on a Monday, drop it in, because we'll take notes on that too. All right, Christy says she's loving Video Text. She went over to it after my recommendation. Bye, Tabitha. Thank you. The math, Tara, was called Video Text Interactive. Oh, good. You found the website. Thanks, Summer, for putting that there. It's kind of like an old-fashioned website. All right. Yeah, Chris, I'll drop the links for Mr. D. Jenny, the other one was called Mr. D Math. The affiliate link's really big and long. If you don't want to wait for me to drop the affiliate link gives me like 10% on any courses you sign up for. And it's just, it just helps with maintain the website and stuff. But you don't have to use my affiliate link. You can go to just mrdmath.com and you can sign up for any of his courses or take a look around. But I'll drop my link in there later. All right. So I have talked for 53 minutes. I'm going to make sure that I go back and I go through your comments because we kind of started talking about a lot of different things. Motivation and underachievement is a huge, big topic, especially when it comes to giftedness. There are 2 posts on my site right now, tips for motivating your gifted student or gifted child, and then posted last week. I forget what the title is, but it's working with reluctant learners. I'll drop both of those links for you. I also have a 2-week free e-course that's called Smart and Motivated, and it really is just free. It's a set of self-paced lessons that get delivered to your inbox. I'll drop the link for that. Once a day, Monday through Friday for 2 weeks. I'm giving you prompts. There's an interactive workbook that you can print out and work with as you go through the course. And it'll help you kind of try to find some of those interests in your kids, try to find some of those passions, try to find some of those carrots, Tara, and see what you can do with it. And at least it's a jumping off point. It also has prompts at the end. Like if you want to hit reply and ask me specific questions, I can either tackle them in an email back to you on a post because it's one that's asked often, or in a live. So it gives you direct access to my inbox too if you sign up for that. You can also sign up for my newsletter on my sidebar of my site, where I've been slacking, admittedly. I've been slacking lately with my newsletters. Ideally, they come out once or twice a week. Once a week with a bunch of links to resources to help you raise your gifted kids. And then the second time, if I get a second one out in the week, it's usually a link to either a deal that a school company I believe in has given me, or a sale that's going on with something that we use currently, or just some other kind of resource that came across my inbox and I thought you'd like. So at most, you'll get two newsletters. So that's that. But you can sign up for both of those. The Smart and Motivated course I will drop in here, and then the other newsletter sign up is in my sidebar. Real quick, Gina, you asked about help teaching executive functioning to ADHD kids. How about, because it's a really good springboard from this particular topic, how about we tackle executive functioning next week at 3? Drop some links in there in the meantime for you. But executive functioning for both ADHD kids, profoundly gifted kids, and kids that struggle with psychomotor overexcitabilities, you can reach them, or at least start working with them, in a lot of the same ways. So I'll tackle that in a whole live, and then in the meantime, I'll drop some links for you. Okay, but yeah, Smart but Scattered, Christy said, is a great one. Okay, I'm going to sign off for now. Keep commenting. Go ahead and share this video once it's rendered. Go ahead and share this out to others, because the more people that see the lives on Mondays, the more people Facebook will show it to and invite in. And then the better conversations we can have. Because the truth of the matter is, like I said, if you've met one gifted kid, you've met one, we're going to be stronger together. We're going to be stronger learning from each other. And there have already been so many great comments in there and so many great suggestions and little side conversations that I think is going to be the best part of these talks. I can give you stuff from my perspective, but getting it from each other's perspective is going to be great too. And so, so go ahead and share this out and bookmark it. And I will see you live next week at 3. And I will get in there and answer as many questions as I can. So thank you so much for joining us. And I'll talk to you later. Have a great day. Love on your kids. Go play with them. If it's nice where you are, go outside. If it's not, snuggle up, read a book, watch a movie or a documentary together, but just love them. They're really, really cool kids. And you are absolutely the best mom or dad or grandma or aunt or whomever for the job. They are with you for a reason, and you totally can rock this. So go love on them. I'm going to go up and love on my own because they've been tied into technology for an hour. So we are going to make some bristle bots, some little Halloween themed bristle bots, little mini robots with toothbrushes. So I'm going to go do a science activity with my kids. Talk to you guys later. Have a good day.